Palworld is an open-world survival crafting game built around capturing creatures, called pals, and then using them for almost everything. It's a game about turning these creatures, these pals, into utility, and then turning that utility into freedom, and then using that freedom to expand your horizons. I think Palworld was always a good idea, and the real question today is whether Palworld fully delivers. And here, after rolling credits and seeing the full game through, I think Palworld is still strongest as a player-driven sandbox obsession, not as a fully matured version of every promise wrapped around it. Palworld is a very easy game to recommend if you like this genre. I think if the opening Palworld experience clicks for you, it does a great job of continuing to deliver on that experience all the way through. Hi, I'm Vadd, and for this review, I played a pre-release 1.0 build. I rolled credits there, I fully cleared everything, I bought the game myself. This isn't sponsored, I'm not being paid by the developers or the publishers to review it. I just got a few days of early access to a game I already own and have already played through multiple times during early access. Listen, I think Palworld is best understood as a highly effective momentum machine. It's a game that's built around small, constant goals that stack together very well. You catch this pal because it helps at your base. You build this station because it unlocks the next tier of material. You explore this region because you need a better mount, a more rare resource, or a stronger worker. You start breeding combinations because you want better passives or just stronger helpers. You upgrade your gear because the next area is pushing harder. You improve your production because your current setup starts to get slow. This is the real heart of the game, not deep authored quests, not a particularly rich narrative spine, not deep tactical combat, not dramatic choices and consequences. The real hook is that Palworld is very good at giving you a reason to do one more job and then another one, and then just one more, and the hours fall away. Listen, Palworld offers a survival sandbox where your creature collection also becomes your workforce. Your transportation, your damage output, half the progression system here. There's something very real here. Palworld has this pull. It has the ability to make you say, I'll just do one more thing. And then suddenly you're 2 more hours deep, catching pals, building out another production line, breeding for something a little better, or flying off over the horizon because you spotted a new part of the map you haven't touched yet. Moment to moment, Palworld works because it has always given you a mix of short-term action and long-term chaos. Hey, if this review is making sense so far, liking the video genuinely helps the channel. And if you want to support the channel more directly, I have a single pay what you want Patreon tier that helps me make videos and stay independent. Thank you. Palworld is not a game carried by missions. It is carried by the systems talking to each other. And when those systems are clicking, Palworld feels hard to put down. When they're not, it starts to feel thin, and those thin parts start to feel exposed fast. For me, exploration was very rewarding from the opening moments to the very end. Palworld is very good at making movement feel like progress. That first time you unlock better travel, the world opens up in a way that feels exciting. Suddenly, verticality starts to matter more, distance will start to matter less, there are areas that once felt dangerous or inconvenient, and they start to feel manageable. I found this created one of the best feelings in the game, this sense that as you're expanding your pal collection, it's not just making you stronger, but it makes you more capable in the world. When I think about combat, it's probably one of the easiest examples of Palworld being good rather than great. The combat, it works, and it can be fun. It can get messy in a way that I think suits the game just right. You're going to see your pal fighting alongside you, you're cycling abilities, you're using weapons, swapping support, you're trying to manage range and pressure. All of that can be enjoyable. I think the problem is that enjoyable is not the same as refined. The player side of combat has never felt especially elegant to me. Yes, it gets more effective as your gear gets better, but better numbers and better tools are not the same as better feel. I think a lot of the time the combat is more about whether your build, your pal choice, and your preparations are strong enough rather than the actual moment to moment of fighting is sharp enough. Again, this is not a fatal flaw, as this is not a combat first character action game. Palworld does not need perfect combat to work. But I think the more hours you spend in Palworld, the larger this weakness stands out. I would say the controls and general player feel in the world is in a similar category. They're fine, they're functional, and they support the core play loop. But very little about Palworld feels luxurious. It's more about momentum than elegance. When you're locked into that cycle of catching, building, upgrading, moving forward, it's enough. But when that loop slows down, some of the rough edges start to stand out more. Still, I think the world is more effective as a place to harvest goals than as a place that's always offering unique surprises. Yes, there are strong moments. There is a good visual variety, lots of fun biomes to navigate through. The basic act of exploration works perfectly fine, but the more hours you invest, the more hours you spend in the world, you start reading the world more as a resource map and a PAL route rather than a place full of authored discovery. And I think that's an important distinction here. See, Palworld understands how to keep the player, that's you and me, chasing that next useful thing. It gives you technology unlocks, it gives you a new crafting station, a better weapon, stronger plows, a new breeding goal, some more efficient labor. All of a sudden, traversal's been improved, you have better gear, more advanced resources, your production chain got cleaner. The progress is so visible, it is constant, and overall, it feels rewarding and fair. You're not just watching numbers go up, you are actively changing your relationship to the game. Those jobs that once felt slow become trivial. All of a sudden, travel becomes easier. Those resource shortages have become manageable. Your base becomes more independent. Your team becomes more specialized. And I think there's a strong progression fantasy here. If you want progression to make you more efficient inside a sandbox, Palworld delivers that. If you want progression to dramatically change the kind of decisions the game is going to ask of you, it's a little less convincing. Like I said, Palworld gives you a lot to unlock, but a lot of those unlocks feed back into the same core cycle. You're going to be gathering better. You're going to build faster. The fight will be easier. You're going to automate more so you can travel better and optimize further. I think the loop is sticky. I think it's effective, but it is not endlessly transformative. Which, of course, the obvious question is, Vadd, why would you keep playing after the first few hours? Well, I think there are good answers to that question. Because you want a cleaner base, because you want stronger passives on your pals, because you want the ideal team. You want to specialize your exploration team, your boss fight team, your adventure team. You want to breed better workers. You want to see everything. You want to complete the map, the collection, the bosses, and the late game adventures. I think these are all understandable, reasonable reasons to keep playing. To be clear here, these are all also mostly self-motivated reasons. Palworld is not constantly reinventing itself to pull you forward. It is giving you a framework and asking how far do you want to push it. I believe this style works extremely well for players who enjoy setting their own goals. I think it works much less well for players who need the game to continue delivering new forms of play. Replayability here kind of follows that same pattern. Yes, there is replayability here. You might want to do another run. Different base plans, different PAL goals, a different efficiency path, multiplayer, some chaos of co-op, right? Some self-imposed restrictions, maybe a challenge run, a fresh start, a better route. But I want you to understand that replayability is not built on a strong narrative variation or hugely different playstyles. In Palworld, its replayability is built on re-entering a loop that is satisfying and you already know you like it. Palworld here has always had a strong premise and a strong tone. There's a contrast between the cute creatures you're collecting and some darker survival absurdity, and it's immediate, it's obvious, it's memorable. I think it gives the game identity fast, and visually the pals do a lot of the heavy lifting. They are readable, distinct, and easy to value, not just as creatures or companions, but also as tools. If you're looking for that story-heavy adventure with rich characters, strong dramatic turns, and a deep world building to carry the whole thing, that is not what Palworld is best at. I think the thing you'll actually remember after the fact is usually a moment of sandbox story that you more or less made for yourself. It was a base you built that got raided, a team you assembled, a grind you solved, a trip that went wrong, that ridiculous success that only happens in survival chaos because the only way it could happen is if 3 different separate systems lined up in just a funny way to you. There's this authored layer that is not the strongest layer here in Palworld. This is not a story-heavy adventure with rich characters. I think one of the biggest strengths of Palworld is that it understands usefulness. I know that sounds a little funny, but listen, even when Palworld is repetitive, it feels productive. You catch a new pal, it's immediately useful. That new station you built has a purpose. You get a better worker and it makes sense, it's useful. A better mount immediately changes things in a useful way. That better passive, all of a sudden your stamina stays up. All of a sudden you take less hits, deal more damage. You have a little breeding pair go well, and it's useful. Your resource run is useful. On top of that, visually the game is colorful, clear, and immediately recognizable. The pals here are the star, and I think the art direction carries more weight rather than raw technical spectacle. I think so much of Palworld depends on you understanding what something is at a glance, and overall this design direction is a huge reason people sink so much time into Palworld. Almost everything in the game is trying to become useful to you. This was a deliberate design direction and it works. Overall, the various systems really do feed into one another effortlessly. You catch pals to improve your base. Improving your base improves your gear production. Better gear means you've improved your combat capabilities and your exploration. Better exploration leads to better pals and resources. Suddenly, you have better pals, which improves your labor, your traversal, and your combat all at once. This loop is not just good on paper, it actually works in practice. I think this is why Palworld can feel hard to quit, even when parts of it are clearly a little rough. If you're the kind of player who enjoys deciding your next objective, Palworld gives you plenty of reasons to keep moving. It rarely ever leaves you with nothing to do. I think something else of note is that Palworld does not feel anonymous. The tone is strange, the premise is easy to explain, I think the creature designs are overall simple and memorable, there's this labor angle that gives the game kind of this weird edge. The fact that your monster collection is not just there to battle, but they also help run your economy with that labor angle, I think it's one of the smartest things the game has going for it. At the same time, Palworld's biggest weakness is that too much of the game is carried by momentum instead of depth. Listen, momentum is not fake, it does matter. A game that always gives you a reason to play for one more hour is absolutely doing something right. But sometimes Palworld relies on forward motion to hide how flat some of the individual parts are. I think the combat works, but it does not evolve enough. I think the base management can be satisfying, but it is not always as smooth or intelligent as we should expect from a game that depends so heavily on base automation. With exploration, the movement upgrades help a lot, but the world is not always backed by equally strong, handcrafted reasons to be there beyond the basic progression of gathering new resources or catching fresh pals. The facts are, Palworld has a late game problem. The more complete you want your experience to be, the more repetition you are agreeing to. And I think for a lot of players, that's fine because the optimization and the journey is the point. I think for some other players, this game is going to start to feel like it is asking for more time than it really earns. Let's talk value for money here, because at the time of review, Palworld at full price is $30. If you're new here, we always use US dollars. It is $30 US. And if you were buying Palworld for the hours, the systems, the base building, the creature collecting, maybe the co-op potential, playing with a friend, this is the kind of game that can take over your free time for a long while. There's a lot of value here. I think that even if the full release price lands just above where early access started, this still has the kind of content volume that can absolutely justify itself for the right audience. You and I both know value is not just about hours. You can get a lot of time out of Palworld. This is a big game. That part's not the issue here. I think the real value question is whether you are excited by the kind of time it offers. If you're the type of player who loves optimization, collections, breeding, base efficiency, and self-made goals, you're going to get a ton out of this. But if you're the type of player who's looking for a more polished, story-forward adventure, more deep action combat, or a survival game where every system is individually best in class, this might not be the best game for you, as Palworld is not really for players looking for deep RPG writing, strong character drama, or the story as the main reward. Palworld is not for players who need that polished combat to carry dozens of hours. Palworld is not going to work if you're the type of player who gets bored when progression becomes about optimization. It's not for players who want every late game hour to feel meaningfully different from the early and mid game loop. And ultimately, it's definitely not for players who struggle with self-directed play, management friction, or who hate any repetition. If you need a game that's constantly surprising you with entirely new forms of play, I do not think Palworld holds that line all the way through. Palworld is for players who like setting their own goals inside of a big sandbox. I think it's for players who enjoy creature collecting as not just utility, but also a battle fantasy. I think it's for players who like watching this weak setup slowly become a functioning machine. You know, if you enjoy the loop of catch, build, automate, improve, repeat, this is going to be a good time. If you're the type of player who likes base games where the productivity itself can feel rewarding, or the type of player who does not need a huge amount of story to stay invested, Palworld is a good fit for you. I also think if you're the type of player who enjoys a little co-op chaos with your friends, or at least enjoys games that has some naturally good stories through systems colliding, this could really work out for you. You know, if you already know you like survival crafting games, light automation, maybe some collection, breeding, progression that's just constantly giving you another practical objective, there's a very good chance that Palworld will get its hooks into you. Ultimately, at its core, Palworld remains an open-world survival crafting game built around capturing creatures called pals, and then we use them for everything. They're going to fight with us, they're going to work on your base, they water the crops, they mine your ore, they carry materials, they generate electricity, they make the ammo, they smelt the resources. They will turn your base from a small camp into an automated machine. You're going to be exploring, crafting, building, catching, breeding, and unlocking new technology to improve your gear and use your growing pal roster to make the next layer of the game easier, faster, and more efficient. And I think that mix is still what makes Palworld stand out. Not because each individual part is the best version of that thing. The facts are the combat is not amazing on its own. The survival systems are not the harshest or the deepest. The RPG side of things is not especially rich. The base building is not the focus, and the story is not the main reason you're here. Still, together, Palworld combines all those pieces in a way that creates a loop with a lot of forward pull. I think this is a game about turning creatures into utility, turning that utility into freedom, and then using that freedom to expand what you can catch, build, and control. I think it's easy to understand why Palworld grabs so many people, but I think it's also easy to understand why a lot of those people are going to come back to it. The core loop works. I think the PAL utility fantasy works, the base progression works, the momentum works. This game still has a real identity that helps it stand out in a crowded space. And for me, after finishing it completely, I do not think the final answer is that Palworld leaves early access having fully become the most complete version of its own ideas. I think it has become a stronger, fuller, more defensible version of the game people already liked. And this is a real achievement. I find Palworld easy to enjoy, hard to blindly recommend. It's best when you can judge it for what it is. It is a creature-driven survival sandbox with an excellent progression hook, a strong identity, and a lot of playable value. But there's also clear limits here on combat depth, late game variety, and overall refinement. I think for the right player, this can absolutely be worth buying and sinking into. At the time of review, Palworld is awarded a 3 out of 5. I recommend.